Emerson polling, it is right down the middle. They call it like they see it. They're not, they're not like a Trafalgar where they're trying to like bend over backwards to find it. And I like Trafalgar. Don't get me wrong. I'm not disparaging them, but he seems pretty bullish on Trump's chances in really 7 out of the 7, Michigan being the one that he says might be most likely to go blue, but not to count Michigan out either. I mean, Stu, I know you take a close look at this stuff for the Blaze. What do you think?
I think he's right on the money. You're right. Emerson is one of the best at this. And I think, you're at a situation where it's a really close race. Everybody knows that. I think the momentum is toward Trump. And I think if I were it had to be one of the candidates, I'd rather be Donald Trump in this race. That being said, it's really, really close. And I think Nate Silver's model, to give an example, has it at something like 39% chance that either one of the candidates wins all 7 of these swing states. I think it's 24% chance for Donald Trump to win all 7 and a 15% chance for Kamala Harris to win all 7. And if that happens, it's going to feel to all of us like it's a blowout, like we're going to have over 300 electoral votes. Everyone's going to be saying how this is a mandate. At the end of the day, though, it's a really close election. It really could go either way. It's Halloween, and I'm scared.
What do you think? I mean, what I was saying to Spencer was just looking at the map right now, it looks like Arizona, Georgia, and Arizona, Georgia, and North Carolina are I don't want to say Trumps, but are definitely leaning Trump. Those are 3 states in which I think he has a very solid chance of winning. And then I think Nevada so far looks amazing. Spencer said he thinks Nevada could still go blue. It has a history of going blue. It's not like a red state. It's just that the early voting data seems better than expected for Republicans. But what do you think of that analysis, RedSteeze? Because I think Trump could do this with just the Sun Belt, just those Sun Belt states, and wouldn't even need to touch any of the Rust Belt, which I think he probably will anyway.
Yeah, I'm not a huge polling or election prognosticator. There's one detail I think people are really overlooking, and this isn't a conspiracy. This isn't mass voter fraud. This isn't stop the steal or anything. But in 6 of the states that Trump needs to win, if Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Arizona, Nevada, North Carolina all have Democrat governors with Democrat-appointed Secretary of States. Michigan's already said we're not going to have our results for 2 weeks. Pennsylvania doesn't even start counting mail-in ballots until Election Day. And so I'm kind of out here looking at, if you're out here saying that Donald Trump is a fascist and he's the next Hitler, are you guys really going to obey every election law and certify Hitler? You saw Mark Elias, who is a Democrat powerhouse lawyer. He's also part of Kamala Harris's election team. He's the guy that led the charge to get Trump thrown off the ballot in places like Michigan and Colorado, where it almost succeeded. And you just saw how in one of these states, they basically said they're going to be allowed to count ballots even 3 days after the deadline, the legal deadline. And I think that this is something that is laying a blueprint where even if ballots come in postmarked that shouldn't be counted, we just saw what happened in Michigan with a Chinese national who cast a vote, and he's being charged with a crime, but Michigan's sitting here going, his ballot's already been counted, nothing we can do. I don't think people are preparing themselves for the amount of shenanigans that are going to happen. And this is not a conspiracy. This is not Donald Trump screaming about voter fraud. And it's not. This is about, again, the rhetoric matching the actions. And if Donald Trump is Hitler, and if he's a fascist, do you really think that Whitmer, Shapiro, Evers in Wisconsin, Hobbs in Arizona are just going to go ahead and go, well, I guess we have to certify the election for Hitler? So I didn't mean to kind of throw you a curveball here, but all this talk about I know, I'm not sitting here saying like all this talk about polling and stuff like that, and Trump's close and he may eke out Michigan. I'm sitting here going, this is why local elections are so important. This is why, losing Arizona with Kerry Lake as the governorship in 2020 was so important, because 5 or 6 of these swing states all have Democrat governors with Democrat-appointed Secretary of States. So if you guys think that this is all just going to be neat and tidy and, election night, there went Pennsylvania, and there went Michigan for Trump, I think you guys need to buckle up, because we're about still 3 months out from knowing who's actually going to win this election. It most likely will get kicked up to the Yeah, it most likely will get kicked up to the Supreme Court. And now you understand why all of these stories about Alito and Thomas are coming out. Now we have another one from Jane Mayer, who's out here. Alito belongs to some Catholic men's group, and they're trying to make it sound like it's Opus Dei. And so they're laying the ground.
Good. Because you can't get rid of the Supreme Court. I hope it does wind up in the Supreme Court because
they can ignore
for the first time in forever, we finally controlled that 6-3, and they can cry liberal tears when it goes up there because those justices will do the right thing.
Sorry
they're not
again
going
for
to
the
wind up to land
buzzkill,
in the Supreme Court. It is a buzzkill, but Stu, I don't know. I'm Pollyanna-ish on it, I guess. I actually think we might learn as soon as election night, and I think it could potentially be a blowout. Sadly, it could be a blowout either way. But I still think we actually might know on Tuesday night. Do you think I'm nuts? What do you think?
I think I'm kind of with you in the idea that it is actually really possible. I mean, it's not crazy to see that, if Trump has the normal polling error in his favor, there's a really good chance that we know. For example, if he wins Georgia, North Carolina, and wins Pennsylvania early, and he knows that we kind of sense that by 1 or 2 points, there's a good chance that he has won the Electoral College. And, Stephen pointing out that all sorts of shenanigans happen afterwards. Who knows with that? But I think it's definitely possible. If a polling error goes in Trump's favor, he probably sweeps all 7 of those. And if he does that, you're going to see maybe not, we're not maybe completely sure. Like in 2016, we weren't completely sure. Still some people calling for Hillary Clinton not to, concede, but we pretty much knew. And I think that sort of thing is possible.
In 2016,
I will say, though,
we knew, we just couldn't believe. That was the problem in 2016. It was like, there's no effing way that just happened. What? Right? Like then in 2020, it was a little bit more clear, but Trump, that could happen. What happened in 2020 could happen this year, where you go to bed thinking one candidate won and you wake up finding out another one has won because of the mail-in vote, which I think will be substantial, but not as substantial as it was in 2020 during the peak of COVID. So that's why I feel a little bit more rosy about the possibility of knowing on Tuesday night. Now, maybe that's just my history of, covering lots of elections on Tuesday nights for Fox News, and we always knew. So I'm kind of trained to believe we could know. Things have changed, as we know. Okay, I have spent a lot of time suggesting Trump could win. It is also possible that Kamala Harris could win. And there is a question about whether the polls are right at all, whether we should be listening to the polls at all. Here's Harry Enton over on CNN in SOT 2.
So I went back and checked out whether or not a party outran the polls 3 presidential election cycles in a row in the key battleground states. It's never happened. It's never happened. 0 times since 1972. So if the polls are going to underestimate Donald Trump once again, that would be historically unprecedented. Now, maybe you want to make the argument that Donald Trump himself is historically unprecedented, but what normally happens is the pollsters catch on, hey, we're underestimating, we're not taking into account some part of the electorate. They make adjustments, and I think that helps to explain why we have never seen that the same party has been underestimated 3 times in a row in presidential elections, at least over the last 52 years. If we went back to 2020, right, all the polls, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, those 3 key Great Lake battleground states, they favored Trump by a wide margin. But there was this group of pollsters that actually had Trump out ahead. And indeed, Donald Trump's best polls in 2020 were 8 points better than the poll averages in those states. So there was this idea, this universe, hey, maybe the averages are really underestimating Donald Trump. This time around, the question that I had was, are there still these polls that may indicate that the averages are really underestimating Donald Trump? This time around, there's really not the evidence for it. The best polls for Trump actually only have him running about 3 points ahead. So I wouldn't be surprised if even this is indicating, hey, wait a minute, these polls that suggest that Trump will do better than the average are actually too good for Trump. And what do we see in 2022 in Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin? Well, it turns out that the average poll in those states actually underestimated Democrats by 4 points. Because if it turns out that the polls underestimate Donald Trump, or underestimated the Democrats, like they did in 2022, what happens? Well, Kamala Harris wins a sweep because she wins all these Great Lake battleground states. She wins down in the Southeast, and she wins down in the Southwest, and she gets the 319 electoral votes.
How do you like that for possible outcomes, Stephen?
I think it's all Calvin ball at this point. I do agree with Stu that the momentum seems to favor Trump. There was a great post somebody had on Twitter that said in 2016, Trump was having fun. In 2020, Trump was not having fun. In 2024, Trump is having fun again. And so I look at this and I go, again, I'm not a pollster, I'm not an election prognosticator. I would say what Stu said, if you wanted to be the two candidates right now, who would you rather be? And I think I would rather be Trump. And again, with North Carolina, Georgia, and then I was paying attention to Nevada, some of these states here. And now there's even talk that Colorado was kind of leaning towards red. So if that happens, look out.
If you say anything like that. Or New Hampshire.
Yeah, I think
Virginia.
the idea that that all 7 of these states are going to go one direction, I think is not likely. And beyond that, I can't give you much expert analysis.
Am I Racist is the Daily Wire's box office hit comedy, and it's the #1 grossing documentary of the decade. Good news is it's now available to stream exclusively on Daily Wire Plus. From the same team that brought you the cultural phenomenon What is a Woman? Comes their next big question. Am I racist? In this hilarious and revealing film, Matt Walsh goes deep undercover, infiltrating the bizarre world, truly, of diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's so good. You've got to see it. He gets the most powerful figures in the race-hustling establishment to say all the quiet parts out loud, exposing the absurdity of modern corporate and institutional diversity practices. And now you can witness the collapse of DEI from the comfort of your own couch. But here's the catch. You can only watch Am I Racist with a Daily Wire Plus membership. So don't miss out. Go to dailywire.com/subscribe and use code DEI to get 35% off your new annual membership. That's dailywire.com/subscribe and be sure to use the code DEI, love that, for 35% off your subscription. Am I Racist is streaming now exclusively on Daily Wire Plus. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.